Sheri, the information we share on this podcast is all about things that we learn from our own personal experience, plus things that we learn from the 515 case studies and counting, people telling us their stories and trusting us. So that's the basis for our information. I've got some personal experience to share right off the top.
Okay.
I just got a call from our insurance agent, and I recently had to do blood work for a life insurance policy renewal, and I have been given, let me make sure I get this right, elite preferred status from State Farm based on my blood work.
Is that why you were listening to it and talking with our agent on speakerphone?
I wanted to make sure you could hear.
Mm-hmm.
She even said, I don't know if Sheri would consider you to have elite preferred status, but State Farm does. So Sheri, do you consider me to have elite preferred status? Okay, well, while you're thinking about your answer, I think your answer is that sometimes I'm moderately preferred.
Moderately.
It depends on what it's being asked to be preferred to. Yeah.
What are my options?
Yeah. Well, I want you to also know that elite preferred status is reserved for the top 2%.
2%. Are you going to hang your results on the refrigerator?
If we weren't trying to sell this damn house and I could hang things on the refrigerator, I think I might get a plaque made. A State Farm plaque, elite preferred.
Elite preferred customer.
98% of people can't reach that status. And I'll tell you one thing, this is how it is relevant to our podcast. I guarantee you that people that are still drinking would struggle to reach elite preferred status because the blood work that they gave me was 3 pages long, and it included liver enzyme numbers.
Yeah, they include all that stuff now.
So we're joking a little bit, but I do have to say how incredibly fortunate I feel to have elite preferred status, just because that means my liver's doing good. Mm-hmm. And coming up on a decade of sobriety is really helping with that. And so I know a lot of people who listen, part of the story is for either themselves or for their partner is health concerns directly related to alcohol consumption. So in case you're worried if you are drinking too much, can I ever get my liver back in shape, or am I just destined for a life of less than elite preferred status? The answer is yes. Our body wants to fix itself. At least 2% of our bodies do. Sheri, I talk too much. It's a well-known fact. After I say I talk too much, I'm going to just kind of pause for the communal amen from our listeners. Let's get this podcast back to what made it great to begin with. Let's hear more from the hero of our story. Let's hear more from you, Sheri.
The hero. That's way too generous of a title.
That's how I feel. Hero. And I know it's how the folks in our Echoes of Recovery program, and a lot of them in our Shout Sobriety program as well, feel. You are definitely the hero. We asked participants in our Echoes of Recovery program to supply questions that we could answer on the podcast, questions directed toward you. We received 48 questions, and many of them were compound questions. So 48 comments using a private Facebook group, and some of the comments had like 5 or 6 questions each. So I don't know. We received 100 questions or more. Let's get right to it. These questions are not categorized. I didn't put them in any particular order. So we're just going to fire them at you, Sheri. Are you hydrated and caffeinated?
Lightly caffeinated.
Do you need to do some stretching? Loosen up a little?
I don't know.
Are you ready to rock? Are you ready to rock? Okay, here we go. First question. How am I doing so far? I'm not talking too much. Good, I can see.
Elite preferred.
Elite preferred. Elite preferred talker. Sheri, how/when do I talk to my husband about his alcoholism and my feelings? In the morning, he's shaking and going through withdrawals, and every other second of the day until he's asleep, he's drinking. Mm-hmm. So withdrawals in the morning, drinking all the rest of the time. Do I ignore it? Do I wait for his rock bottom and keep working on myself? He seems so oblivious to how I feel, and I want to shout it from the rooftops. Whew.
Wow.
Can you relate to that?
I can't really relate to that as much because you never got to that point where you were like having withdrawals if you weren't drinking. Mm-hmm. And you weren't like a morning drinker, so I did have a lot of time to talk with you.
This question,
But that's
let me help. There was some like chat in the group about this question, and some people talked about how. So my partner, he isn't drinking all day, but he's either hungover or working or drinking, and so that limits the time because in the middle of the day when he's at his best, he's at work and giving his best to work.
Right.
I don't know if that helps you relate at all.
Well, I mean, that's more relatable. I feel like I don't really have a fabulous answer for this. I mean, unless there is a point, if you're, I mean, and you can correct me if I'm wrong, but if you're shaking and you need that alcohol in your system so you're not shaking, there's a point where you're not going to be like intoxicated. Your body's just like taking this in and going, oh, surviving. And so maybe like in the morning, after the shaking and like maybe that first drink. I mean, I know that I would hate to talk to someone who was drinking about their drinking at that moment. But if you were to bring it up, and maybe say, like, you're shaking and you have to drink so you're not shaking and going through daily DTs, this is very concerning. And, then kind of cage it to see how that's going to go and see if they would be willing to listen to your feelings. Because, I mean, someone who's having that go on, I mean, can they be that oblivious?
Can they be that oblivious? Meaning
to their own health, like the alcoholic?
Oh, yes. I think we can. Cognitive dissonance is powerful. Yeah. So, and even if we're not oblivious, we can choose to push it aside and worry about it another day and think, oh, I've got responsibilities to deal with, or I am in so much pain. I've got to drink now to help to medicate in the moment.
Yeah, but I think that
what about the part of the question? Sorry, go ahead.
You have to find a time. I wouldn't wait until they're really, really intoxicated. And I know that we in the group have talked about raising the bottom so someone doesn't have to hit a rock bottom. I mean, because a rock bottom for somebody can be not as traumatic, and then for others it has to be like this person is shaking until they're starting to drink. Like, how rock bottom is that going to be? And you don't want to wait until everything is gone and lost, or there is a major tragedy of a possible death or serious injury. So I think not waiting until the rock bottom would be something I would approach.
As far as speaking your mind, but let's say the person's okay, great, thanks for sharing, don't care, I'm going to go back to drinking. Then what do you do?
Yeah, I think
I mean, she says, do you ignore it and wait for the rock bottom, keep working on myself at some point?
I mean, well, taking care of yourself, I don't think you're ignoring the drinking. Taking care of yourself might mean that you have to leave the residence, in a temporary separation, or you move to a different part of the house if that's possible, or you do something that's taking care of yourself, not ignoring it, and making sure that those things that you're doing are showing the alcoholic that you're not ignoring it.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like something a little more bold and grand
that you're
willing to do and able to do and can financially do or responsibility wise can do to remove yourself from that situation, which is taking care of yourself, making sure that your feelings and your boundaries are these things.
So you're not ignoring it, but you're also not, you understand that you can't fix it for them, but you are displaying your displeasure, detaching, and making your own moves.
Yeah.
Do you relate to the part where the questioner says, he seems so oblivious to how I feel and I want to shout it from the rooftops? I might not have gotten into physical addiction to this degree, but I definitely didn't think I was drinking problematically when I was definitely drinking problematically. So do you relate to the he seems so oblivious and I want to shout it to the rooftops?
Yeah, I mean, because you would often, say that the kids and I were your top priority. And I felt like that was completely being ignored because now alcohol was your top priority. And you didn't want to hear that. That's how I felt.
Yeah.
So I do feel like there were a lot of times that you didn't respect or care or understand, or just oblivious to what I was trying to tell you about how it was making me feel. I wish I had those words, emotional safety, in my in my brain, and was able to figure out what I was trying to explain, because I think that's, you don't have the kind of best language when you're like, something just feels off, and you know or I don't feel comfortable around you, and I'm anxious around you. Well, that's emotional safety, or lack of emotional safety. So I think um, everyone feels unseen and unheard a lot of times in these situations when we're the partners.
Yeah. Yeah, for sure. Okay. Great job. Next question. You did so well. I'm going to give you another. How do I detach without leaving?
Um,
I mean,
I
the
know
first
this
question was a stretch for you. This
Yeah.
one's right up your
Yeah, I
alley.
was trying to think about this a little bit. Like, how did it come about? And I think I just got so fed up and so annoyed, and I needed to just kind of separate myself from you. So I started, I realized, like, it doesn't matter what I'm going to do. You're going to get pissed off at some point or another. You're going to get angry or upset or about something or another. Whether it's something that was going on in the big bad world, or something that was going on with our own personal business that we owned, or something with me. So you were never going to be satisfied. So it was kind of easy at that point to be like, well, we're going to go do this. You can come if you want, but you don't have to. Or sometimes I wouldn't even say we're going to go do this. And I just kind of stopped engaging in conversation with you. I didn't ask you, like, how was your day when you came home, because I really didn't give a shit. So it was really just, I think if somebody had described what detachment was, it would have felt really cold, and it would have been hard for me to do earlier on. And I think I had to just get myself there, and I didn't realize at the time that I was actually detaching. When you would come in and you'd want to share with me, I'd be like, yeah, just yeah, yeah. Oh, maybe that's what you think. I don't feel that way, but that's okay. I didn't really want to kind of engage in any conversation with you.
It sounds like you're saying it sounds cold because it is cold.
Yeah.
And you had to get cold before you could be cold.
Yeah. Yeah.
Just naturally.
Just naturally.
Yeah.
Kind of.
We hear about people who do things, when we say detach without leaving, like they divide up the house and say, I'm going to stay in the basement and you're going to stay on the upper floor, or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
Do you think that would have worked with us?
Oh, God, no.
Why?
You're a follower. You're clingy. Sorry. Like, you can't be alone. I mean, there's a lot of things that I'm like realizing that drinking made you not be comfortable with yourself.
Mm-hmm.
You could be alone at some point when you were drinking in the evening and I had gone to bed, but no way. You can't, you just can't be alone. You're a follower, whether it's good or bad, talking, arguing. I mean, you're like one of those memes about the cats that are coming into the bathroom. Oh, you're trying to go to the bathroom alone? Even now in sobriety, you're doing a really good job of trying to give me some space in the bathroom when I'm trying to wash my face. Because you and I have a different routine.
Well,
okay. We're opposites of, like, you brush your teeth, then you wash your face, and I wash my face, then brush the teeth. So you're trying to give me some space.
That's not true. I don't have any rhyme or reason.
Okay, I don't know. I feel like you just come in and just cause chaos in the bathroom. I'm in there.
Well,
but it's because you can't be alone.
Well, here's part of your problem. Okay, I'm not going to push back on any of the follower. You can't be alone. You're weak and terrible.
I didn't say you're weak.
I'm not
going
to push back on. I'm going to own that. You're right. But our listeners need to know. You intentionally, when you're going to the bathroom, leave the bathroom door cracked open. And why do you do that, Sherry?
Well, because a cat might come in.
A cat might come in.
And one of them likes to sit on the edge of the bathtub while I'm doing my things in there.
So you leave the bathroom. I don't think you've ever closed the bathroom door.
Well, also with kids, when they're little, you don't just close the door all the way. What if there's an emergency or they need to come in? So I'm trained by the kids or the cats. But anyhow, not for you.
So I'm to not enter rooms even when the doors are open.
If you're not always all
at least the bathroom.
Yeah, but
it's good to know.
But it's just
people think this podcast is for them. It's for me. It's for me to learn the house rules. This is good. 30 years.
Well, I know. You weren't picking up on my. just leaving the room when you come in. No,
I never know why I'm getting a dirty look. So yeah, so the detaching without leaving would not have.
It wouldn't have worked.
My opinion doesn't matter, but I agree.
And I mean, and I also think that there was a financial component of it. We had kids, you know, that like who would have left the house? Like we couldn't have really afforded any sort of short-term rental for you. We didn't have like friends or family close enough, so I get that.
But what if it had gotten really bad? I mean,
if it had gotten really
at
bad,
some point, I think the advice to our listeners has to be, it doesn't matter about financials.
Yeah, I think if it had gotten really bad, I mean, I would have, I would have enlisted a lot more financial help from our family that lived outside of our area.
Yeah.
I probably would have done that. And I would have probably had a lot more help come in and say, you need to leave the house. And I would have made you leave because the kids didn't need to leave the home.
Yeah.
But I mean, it never got to a physical state that it was so bad. It never got to a day-to-day, all-day drinking that it was so bad. I mean, I could entrust the kids with you for a good portion of the week and a good portion of days. Because you just weren't at that was not your level of drinking. But if it had, for sure, I would have done something more dramatic.
Yeah, you said day to day. I think that's probably important because short of physical abuse, from an emotional abuse standpoint, it definitely got as bad as it can get. But it was, that would happen, and then we'd go weeks between it happening again. It wasn't a daily thing.
Right.
So
and it wasn't even necessarily a weekly thing when there would be a bad incident.
So I don't want to say it almost made it tolerable. It should never be tolerated. But it made it so that you didn't have to take your detachment to the next level, whatever that would have looked like.
It made it at the increments that things like that occurred. It made it so hard to decipher what was best. You know, like for the kids, they didn't need to grow up in that anxiety. And I didn't realize they were walking around waiting for the next explosion, the next big thing. So that is what made it so complicated. I mean, it would have been so much easier if it was like there was physical abuse or it was a day-to-day or you had to drink every morning just to get your day started, like something. That's why the quote, the term high functioning alcoholic is so hard to describe to people.
Yeah.
People out in the public don't see you acting obliterated and a fool. I mean, very often. I mean, maybe around a few close friends occasionally here and there throughout the years, but
when you say it would have made it easier if it had been worse like that, do you mean it would have made the decision easier or it would have made the environment easier to live in?
It would have made the decision easier. Being on like this weird cyclical schedule that we were on, you know, I could almost like feel it coming. Like if business had been bad at the bakery and during slow times, I could almost feel it happening. Or if there was going to be like vacation or something coming up, you know, you could almost like mark a calendar with the weekend that it was going to be really bad. That's why it was so hard to decide to leave.
Mm-hmm.
I think if there had been a lot more continuity with your abusive drinking and emotional abuse and emotional unsafety and disruption in the house, it would have been easier to say, yeah, we're leaving.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, because also I think not a lot of people would have understood. Like our friends, you know, most of our friends, like our friends that we knew through our business, because we had a collection of owners that we were friendly with, people from church, extended family, at some point or another before family was involved, you know, like they wouldn't have understood why there was a separation or a divorce.
Yeah. Such good points. I think this is why it's so important to have people to talk to that understand that your tolerance, Sheri, for the chaos and drama and trauma might be different than someone else's. Also, the amount that you're being exposed to, not the severity of it when you're being exposed to it, but the frequency varies. And so I think that's why when we meet people, we don't tell them what to do, because every situation is so individualized and people's tolerance for it is so individualized. It's so hard. Next question. What sorts of things changed between you and Matt after he got sober? Were some of the behaviors still there? And what did you do to work through those? I struggle with getting him to understand that it's not only about just not drinking. Ooh. I like that one.
Yeah, I'm gonna. So what are some of the things that changed? Well, I think Matt learned and I learned that I loved him, but I didn't like him. So we had to kind of reconcile that. I think I had to kind of still remain detached and not really give in to the woe is me. I can't drink. I'm not like everybody else. But you had already had 2 6 months and 1 9-month bout of sobriety with, before. So I kind of experienced that. And in those times, I would try to be positive with you and give you encouragement, but I only give so much encouragement. So I'm not, you're not my child. I don't have to encourage you.
I love that.
That much. So I think then I hit my level of not being able to do it, and then then you went back to drinking because you either came up with a good plan or you act like nothing changes because you're still an awful bitch, blah blah blah. So I think I had to remain detached for a while, and this time though there were very significant pieces that made me feel more comfortable, but I wasn't gonna let my guard down still. I feel like there was just something in my gut and the way you were behaving, at the 6 month mark, and then
why do you think that is?
Well, I think it was because you weren't glommy and you weren't whiny, and I mean there were times you would get blue and down, and that's tolerable, but you weren't living it every day I can't do this, I can't do that, woe is me, oh gosh, I only wish I had a beer. You also were trying to be you were a little bit more remorseful and humble, and you were kind of a background player, our kids will say that in a video game, someone who was just kind of in the periphery of the lives for a while, because I think you were holding back and you were doing a lot of work yourself, writing and reading and researching on what you needed to do. So I kind of let it be a little bit distant. So I think that was knowing that I didn't like you, then trying to learn to like you again, but still remain detached and guarded. And then I realized I needed help for myself, but that was 18 months after your start of sobriety, something like that.
It just sounds so complicated from your side of it. I don't know, you're trying to stay up on a surfboard or something. You gotta lean right, you gotta lean left, you gotta, the wave changes, you don't know. It just seems really hard.
Yeah.
To
find a balance where you can.
Yeah. What do you need for yourself? How should you be interacting with me? You're not responsible for my sobriety. You never were. I think that's really, really, really important.
Mm-hmm.
But at the same time, we live under the same roof and we're forced to interact. And so it must have been really hard to just every day be, trying to do this balancing act.
Yeah, well, everything comes to a head. I still felt, I didn't like you and I didn't respect you and I didn't respect your opinion. So after I had a blow up over.
Now I think that I didn't know, right? And I didn't know that you didn't like me for a very long time.
Yeah.
So you didn't like me and you didn't respect me, but you kept, you hid that.
Yeah.
Fair?
Yeah. Yeah. So.
Were you just afraid of bruising my fragile ego? Or were you afraid I'd flip out and drink?
Probably both. Yeah, probably both. And also, I was guarded. I didn't want you to know that. I don't want to have a conversation about that because a conversation like that would be like exhausting and never ending. And I just didn't want to give you that much time.
Yeah.
Like, I mean, we already, even during the drinking days, we did like have kind of a weekly talk. And those could be exhausting and long, and depending on what the situation had been like that weekend and what was on your mind. And um, so I didn't want to have any of these because it was just everything was so heavy. So I think it was a combination of all of that.
Yeah.
Um,
What about the part where she says, I struggle with getting him to understand that it's not just about just not drinking. So, in other words,
yeah,
sobriety has come,
but no.
why isn't everything fixed? And she's saying, oh, it's far from fixed.
Well,
and he's saying, why?
And I think, too, if they're not in any sort of program or doing anything to better themselves, this is the alcoholic,
Yeah.
better themselves and heal and grow and change, they're going to be stuck in that.
Mm-hmm.
And you're right. Like, it's not just about sobriety. There's a whole bunch of stuff that has transpired, and there needs to be a lot more healing for both sides and then coming together. So it's a long road. I don't know, because it doesn't say how long they've been sober and not drinking. But yeah, I don't know if there's any way that you can really convince somebody of that until they get into some sort of group or community program to or research and understand that.
I wanted it to be all about the alcohol. How did I get to the point where I recognized, oh, we've got bigger? Because you would say that a lot. You would say,
Yeah.
oh, you know, the whole the words that we use all the time are to say that sobriety is just a prerequisite to all the real work.
Yeah, I mean, I guess just using terminology like there's collateral damage from the drinking. There's, there's the inappropriate behavior, and that's maybe when you can say, and I have a list of this, and maybe that it's writing them out and just bullet points, and then saying, here's this sheet. You don't have to look at this, but this is the stuff that I feel like happened and was damaged in our relationship because of alcohol. So it's not just about you not drinking. It's about going back and talking about these things, fixing these things, fixing this type of behavior. Don't say these things that are triggering to me anymore. Those sort of things. And like, I don't know. And then it's just like one bite at a time, right? You just kind of gotta.
Isn't that what they say about eating an elephant?
Yeah.
It is kind of like eating an elephant.
Yeah.
Sheri, we're going to get back to more questions for you. But first, let's tell our listeners about our sponsors. We are supported by Echoes of Recovery. We are offering listeners a free 30-minute video call session with you and me, Sheri. If you are the loved one of an alcoholic, this offer is for you. This is not therapy, it is peer support. It is a chance for you to share what you're going through with people who truly understand.
And we've learned that friends and family love us, and they mean well, but they just don't get it. Their advice is often motivated by getting us out of a bad situation without nuance or compassion for the complexity of it all. Matt and I understand the complexity because we've lived it.
Therapy is great, but it is expensive. Al-Anon has helped so many, but it's just not the right fit for everyone.
And Matt and I are ready to listen and to share what we've learned through our experience and through hearing the stories of so many, like 515 case studies and counting.
In your 30-minute free video call with us, we will listen with empathy and share some details about our Echoes of Recovery group full of loved ones of alcoholics who truly get what you are going through. To sign up for your free 30-minute video call with Sheri and me, please go to echoesofrecovery.org and answer just 5 simple questions.
Well, one of the questions is your name, so really 4.
Good point. It shouldn't take you a minute to take advantage of this offer and sign up for a free 30-minute video call. Please go to echoesofrecovery.org. We are supported by SoberLink. the high-tech, tamper-proof, stellar quality, best-in-class breathalyzer and accountability tool.
So, Matt, we talk about what SoberLink is every week. In your opinion, who is SoberLink for?
SoberLink is for people like you and me, people who are trying to rebuild trust in a relationship wrecked by alcoholism. It is easy to say, I'm sober now, what more do you want from me? I'm pretty sure you heard those words.
Oh, yeah, heard him and hated him.
That's exactly my point. Words don't rebuild trust. Repeated positive behavior does. I wish we had used SoberLink to help me prove I was serious and to restore your trust in me sooner. SoberLink is also for people in relationships that have dissolved, leaving them in co-parenting situations. SoberLink is accountability and peace of mind. When it comes to the safety of our children, nothing is more important than peace of mind.
But what if a listener is in a relationship in recovery or a co-parenting situation and they just don't know? They aren't ready to commit to SoberLink. What do you say to those people?
I say take that first small step. Request a promo code. Learn just a little bit about this tool and the company on a mission to help restore trust and accountability. It doesn't cost a thing to request a promo code.
Oh, yeah, I know a lot of people in situations like ours who consult with an attorney about divorce. They take the first step, learn their rights, and start to understand the process. The vast majority of people who consult a lawyer don't file for divorce. Taking the first step initiates action, education, and change.
And that's all we're asking people to do. Request a promo code for $50 off your SoberLink device. Take that first step. It is easy and there is no commitment, and you can learn more about this awesome product and this awesome company. For a promo code for $50 off your device, please go to soberlink.com/untoxicated. All right, Sheri, I hope you enjoyed your break. Let's get back to peppering you with questions. Touching on the theme of you'll know when you know, were you ever close to leaving, or did your circumstances keep you in place? Were you like me, living on hopium that things would improve? How did you deal with the pressure from other people outside of your immediate family to leave, stay, etc.? That's a good one.
That is a good one. Well, I think that this is a question that has the caveat, which I grew up with alcoholism in, with my parents. They were separated when I was younger, but it didn't mean that I still didn't see my dad drunk. So I think that I was able to tolerate a lot more. And then putting in the way that you were more quote unquote high functioning, that it was just every once in a while, but it was this underlying current that it's not so bad, not so awful. And I know that the beginning of our relationship, we both didn't want divorce. You thought divorce was a terrible thing. It was like failure, blah, 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 blah. We've, obviously we've changed in our comments about that, because that's not how we feel. But I never really felt like, a marriage ending in a divorce was failure, because you do a lot of things to avoid it. And
you had witnessed that growing up.
I had witnessed it growing up, so I was really trying to avoid that, because I thought, well, maybe that will make it better for our kids. Was there a point when I wanted to leave you? Yeah, there were points where I wanted to leave you, but I felt like the circumstances were so against me that I couldn't leave, because we had a business together, so we were both co-owners. We lived really far away from family.
Mm-hmm.
We had 4 kids.
Mortgage was in both our names.
Yes. So I felt like there was such a financial commitment, and then I would just think of the kids, like, how do I tell the kids? Like, they wouldn't understand. Little did I know they understood a lot more than I ever realized, even when they were little. And I think they could have immediately felt like the peace, being away from you. So I don't want to say it was a lot of hope. I just felt like I knew that once you were woken up, I just knew that you were gonna find sobriety at some point. But
Did you know I was going to shove a microphone in your face and make you talk about sex on the internet?
no, not at all.
You would have left for sure.
Yeah, I would have.
The listener asks about hopium.
Yeah.
And I want to drill down on that because one of the dynamics of our relationship that I think helps us, make it is that I am a blind, dumb optimist. Feeling particularly stupid right now. And you are a pessimist. And so I don't know that the phrase
realist.
Realist or pessimist. Either way, I'm not sure that you ever spent a lot of time living on hopium.
No.
I think you were more realistic.
Yeah.
And I don't mean to call this questioner unrealistic, but you just didn't have that vibe of, I just know it's going to be better. It's going to get better. I just know it will.
Yeah. I don't think I ever felt like it was going to be, better and great. I was like, can it just be tolerable? Can we just muddle through? And I think being a realist, not a pessimist, I don't feel like I have a flair for the dramatic. So I feel like I was trying to really downplay some of the bad situations. I was trying to downplay those a little bit, not be in denial, but say it only happens occasionally. And it's generally when there isn't, others around or the kids are asleep. So I tried to kind of reconcile that with me. That's where I think that I was call myself a realist. I think if I was a pessimist, I would be like, this is doom and gloom and I'm out of here. That's how I think I would have viewed the relationship.
Well, but you said something really important, pessimist, realist, whatever. Your bar wasn't very high. You weren't trying to live this idyllic Disney perfect, princess and Prince Charming marriage and life. You just wanted it to not suck so bad.
Yeah.
Oof.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, that.
Yeah, and I know that, and the question also asked, did I get pressure from other people? For a while when we had less children, I mean, we have 4. When we had less children, my family would be like, well, just gotta leave him. I mean, you just leave him. It goes back to, they just want to see us out of a bad situation.
That's right.
And that's what happened with my, some of my family members, my mom and my sister. They left relationships that were abusive and toxic and alcoholic. And I know they were aware there wasn't the physical abuse that was happening, but they knew the emotional. But they weren't able to really kind of themselves express, you need emotional safety in your relationship. They just knew that wasn't good for the kids or I. And then once we had more children, I remember my mom saying, I don't know what you're going to do, Sheri. I mean, how can you support 4 kids?
Yeah.
Without Matt. And it's not like she said, you need a man. She just knew that we had so much financial entanglement. And we live in an expensive city. We had, a mortgage, and we had, other financial expenses. We had our own private insurance we paid for healthcare. So it's just, it would just be a bigger financial stretch to try to have independence here without a partner. And I think she was also worried, about your behavior if I were to leave. I know that you've said
she's smart.
I think she was worried about that.
That like you said, because I'm a follower?
Because you're a follower, and maybe you would have become vengeful. I think she just was really worried about what you might do.
I don't think I have that in me, to be honest with you.
I don't think so either. You've said that I would give you everything and I would live in a paper box.
I don't think I ever would have given up, though.
Right.
I would have been persistent, but I don't think I would have turned dark and evil. Yeah. I'm just too big a wimp for that. So
I don't think it's wimp. I think you're too compassionate for that, and you as much as you would say you put your family first, and I would say you put alcohol first, I think that would be a scenario where you would have put your family first.
Yeah, far from elite preferred status, but at least a little bit compassionate. Sheri, we talk a lot about the importance of listening to instincts over insecurities. Here's a question that's right up that alley. Did you struggle to trust your gut, Sheri? When did you stop listening to Matt that it wasn't a problem and start trusting your gut? Any one particular episode where you knew, oh, this is for sure a problem? Like, did the bomb go off for you? Did the light bulb light? Could you finally see the red flag?
I ignored,
Did you cross the line?
I ignored the red flags in the beginning because, like I said, my expectations were a lot lower. I grew up where there were people that partied all the time, people that never really ended their partying and had what looked like on the outside really great lives, or people that didn't quit their partying and had really shitty lives. So my lines were very blurred. I didn't really have a clear definition of what healthy and safety and security meant in a relationship. So, did I ever stop listening to my instincts? No. Did I ever believe Matt when he said it isn't a problem? No. Even early on.
And where did that confidence come from?
Pardon me. I don't think it was confidence. I think it was just like, you call a spade. Like, you drink abusively. Like, you would binge drink, and then the day to day.
But
like, everybody has cocktails.
Most people don't call a spade a spade. Most people listen when somebody else is trying to convince them that a spade is a club. You have incredible confidence in your own instincts. You always have. That's one of the things I love the most about you, because if I'm trying to do something stupid, which is pretty much daily, and I can gauge how stupid it is by how set against it you are. And if you reach a certain threshold of set against it, then I know I'm wasting my time.
Yeah.
And you're always right.
Well, and just because, though, I didn't stop listening to my instincts and I didn't fall for this isn't a problem, Sheri, and I could see like I mentioned, the collateral damage that has come with drinking, and I could see the problems piling up more and more and more, and it wasn't all drinking. I didn't always fight for it and argue for it, because like, that would be ridiculous, because you are an arguer, and you want facts and evidence, and I'm like, I can't tell you facts and evidence because this is just how I feel, and I know nobody drinks like this on a daily basis. No one comes home,
or that it's not healthy,
and that it's not, and yes, and claim, nobody I know drinks like this on a daily basis and claims that they're like the healthiest person in the world. And like, you and I had different opinions about drinking coming in. I felt like it was more of a social thing to do with others, and you felt like it was okay to use it as a winding down tool when you got home from work. So I gave up a part where I stopped arguing and expressing my opinions.
You didn't change them. You didn't let me manipulate you away from them. You just stopped wasting your breath, basically.
Yeah.
Next question. Sheri, our families have so much in common, and all 4 of our respective kids are nearly the same ages. Although my marriage has ended in divorce and yours has survived, do you have any advice for me on how to best support my kids as they continue to watch their dad's health decline? How do you think you would support your kids if Matt hadn't found sobriety? And I'm so sorry to ask you this, because I know it's a tough one for you to reflect on, and I don't want to make you cry, and I will bet you know who asked this question.
Yeah. Wow. I don't know. I mean, I think I would probably make sure that the kids were in therapy. And it's so hard when they're young adults and teens. They don't see it. But I think, like, it's important to see you become healthy and get the help you need, and being an example, because even if they are fighting you on it and they don't see that it's necessary, maybe down the road they will, and always offer it up. I mean, because I know that we've done that for our kids. Um, I think being the best version of myself and leading by example. Like, I don't drink at all. And there are times where our two oldest are now over the age of 21, and our son has never asked, like, do you want anything to drink or do you want a sip of this? And our daughter, like, she has asked if I wanted a sip of like her margarita or something, and I'm like, no. And so I don't use it to lecture them at that time. I just try to be a better example of like, nope, I'm good. I don't need it, or um, I think if because there's just that stubborn period they go through, and that I don't know what you would call it. Like, they think that nothing bad is ever going to happen.
From
They
like,
they never think like their own drinking
oh
or
yeah,
or their friends drinking, like they're invincible. And they never know, like, we all started out in our 20s and in college and post college and young, drinking with friends there, or like with our workmates that we have, um, when we're between the high school and college age. So I think that, and if you hadn't gotten sober and your decline was in health, I would don't want to beat them over the head with it, but I would say, a lot of this is due to the drinking, like, and make sure that I'm there to listen, and because it's gonna, yeah, I think that's like something that's almost like grief, because they're losing somebody and they see them being lost every day, so it's sort of like a death, because it's the death of someone they knew and they loved, now changing and morphing into this other person. So I think just trying to be there and being a good listener.
Gabor Mate, the brilliant addiction and recovery expert, he says defiantly that no two children have the same experience, even if they grow up in the same physical address with the same parents.
Yeah.
From what you've seen, now, obviously, there's a kind of dramatic change that happened in our household because I was an active alcoholic and then I was a sober alcoholic.
Mm-hmm.
But do you agree with that philosophy that regardless of timing, regardless of maybe in this person's case, her husband never got sober, but do you think she needs to be prepared for the fact that those kids have different experiences, even if it was the same house?
Yeah. I think that each person has their own level of resiliency or perception or level of empathy. I mean, I think that we see that within our own kids. Like, I know we often say the oldest kids saw the most, but I don't think that means they're both behaving the same, because I think there's a big difference between the two, um, and it just depends on that individual person. There's like there's a lot of anxiety in a couple of our kids, and even though they were like split up in the ages, I think there was a level of anxiety that one was born with and one that grown over time, and I don't think the other two have as much of that struggle, and I think what each of them were exposed to is maybe a little different, and maybe some of them are just more sensitive to the mood and the vibe of the house, whereas others are oblivious, or they find a way to like mentally escape away from that and find their own creative outlets and experiences that maybe get them out of the house, so they aren't around it. So there's not going to be the same
It's amazing.
Same feelings and same aftermath, unfortunately. I guess that's the best word, aftermath.
Listener, we really appreciate the question. We love you so much. We think of you often, the person who asked this particular question. We know your circumstance, and we know how lucky we are that ours took a different turn than yours, and we will always be here for you. We love you. Let's do a little bit of a lightning round. Let's pepper you with some shorter questions.
All right.
When I was in it, I often felt paralyzed by fear of the unknown, says the question asker.
Mm-hmm.
What are some things I can do to move past the fear and take action? Any action?
I was paralyzed with fear, like not being able to decide if I'm going to stay or go or how I was going to do that. So that's where I think the detachment came in, because it kind of made me angry that there was fear and that I was feeling stuck. And so that is when the anger took hold and then the detachment began. I don't feel like I was outwardly angry to you. I just was being cold and not really caring if your feelings were hurt.
Yeah.
Like by not being included. I didn't say cruel things, I don't think. Um, I mean, I did during arguments and those sort of things, but I don't think that was my nature not to show it. So the only way I was showing the anger and was through detachment.
And it
And that
turns out that's the most effective way. We
Yeah,
didn't
and-
know it, but it was.
Right, and it made me feel a little bit better because then I wasn't wearing all of his emotions, and so I felt less bogged down and
Sure.
less stuck.
That's good. Can you please address keeping the alcoholism a secret from friends and family? Whose story is it to tell?
Well,
It's a good one.
it is a very good one. I mean, I don't like to air my dirty laundry, but if I think the more people you tell, the more you feel validated that this isn't right and that you have a support network. I think it's very important to have it to be trusted people. I wouldn't, I have a couple neighbors I wouldn't have shared any of this information with, but I probably had a neighbor that I would have shared this information with, and a good friend, because I think that that's really important for building your community and your network, and you never know when you're going to need that. Whether it's a situation where maybe your partner and the alcoholism is so bad, and then there's like a drunk driving incident, and you need to call in people. It's going to be really weird just to call them in and hey, this is the situation, or you need to get out, and they're there to help you, like leave real quickly with your stuff.
Helps your support system be prepared to support you.
Yeah.
If they know what's going on.
Yeah.
Yeah. Good point.
And by the way, alcoholism is everybody's story because we're all affected by it. That's how I feel. So there isn't just the alcoholic story to tell. I know we don't want to shame and blame the alcoholic for the disease, but you're a part of that and you're involved and it's affecting you.
That's a great point. Anyone who's impacted, it's your story to tell. But would you suggest that the partner of the alcoholic be prepared for hell to be unleashed on them when they tell their story, whether they ultimately have the right to tell it or not?
Probably. I think that you would have been very upset knowing that I was talking about this with others.
Yeah.
And you were.
Well, I was
when
you told my parents.
Yeah. I mean, and that was something I had to be prepared for a little bit. Like, yeah. But I thought the risk versus the reward the reward outweighed the risk. I was already pissing you off with whatever, and it didn't matter what. So.
Would you say the reward eventually outweighed the risk? Because I think there were times when you found my drinking to be problematic, but you wouldn't have outed me because it hadn't gotten bad enough yet.
Yeah.
That's so complex. There's no right or wrong. These aren't true false questions. Okay, let's get to your bad behavior, Sheri. Okay. I did some shitty things to my husband during his active drinking because I felt pushed to my absolute limits and cornered, so I came out swinging. I was accused by him of being emotionally abusive at the time. Did you ever do or say something to Matt during active addiction out of frustration or anger that provided Matt with ammo against you? So now you're the bad guy?
Oh yeah. If anybody knows me, I can be pretty spiteful. I would say things because I would be like, he's so drunk he doesn't even know, and I had to vent somewhere. So I called you all sorts of names. One time I threw a plate of spaghetti in your lap. I don't know if you remember that.
Did it have sauce in it?
Yeah, of course it was sauce.
Well, I don't like sauce on spaghetti.
Yeah, so it was my plate of spaghetti
I
threw in your lap.
Didn't you say that you used to spit in my beers?
All the time. I would spit in your beer all the time. So bad I wanted to pee in it, but I didn't ever get that nasty. Yeah, and I said some really hurtful things because I felt like you were really good to find the most vulnerable place and go after me with And so I know I said something really, really awful that stuck with us for a long time. Um, that you took a long time to forgive me for.
You
So,
just said it to hurt me and it wasn't true?
yeah, yeah. And as soon as it was coming out of my mouth, I was like, oh, I wish I could take that back. But it's already out there. Um, and I have carried some guilt about that. But that's where blaming the alcohol has really helped us both heal because it changed both of us. So, me being mean to you is only in reaction. And I would often say that. And I would say, you are making me this way. You are making me this way. And I should have been saying, alcohol is making me this way. I'm not drinking it, but I'm a secondhand drinker and I'm being, changed by this, because you would often then say, when I would say, yeah, you're making me act this way. You're making me feel this way. And you would say, no one can make anyone feel or do anything. And blah, blah, and I just wanted to punch you in the face.
Yeah.
Because you were very good at being a condescending drunk, like really good at being calm and remaining calm, but very argumentative. So I wish I had the words to say, you're drinking and the alcohol is making me behave like this, because I wouldn't be.
Such an important point. You don't have to be the one drinking the alcohol for the alcohol to be making the change in you and your persona and your attitude and the things you're willing to say.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, you definitely sometimes gave me ammo, but I don't think that changes the fact that it was my fault, or the alcohol's fault, as you said. Mm-hmm. Sheri, what marital advice would you give yourself if you could go all the way back to your wedding or even early in your relationship days when drinking was not yet the issue, yet there were already issues? Were there? Do you think that if you had had the skill to detach and set boundaries back then, that the same skills that you have now, that our relationship would, well, okay, I'm not wording this right. They're saying that Matt's and Sheri's relationship would have continued. So if you had known back then what you know now and had the skills back then that you have now, do you think we'd be together?
I don't know. I mean, I really don't know, because I feel like alcohol was an issue way back in the beginning of the relationship, prior to marriage and us living together. There were arguments and fights already when alcohol was involved. I don't know. I really, really don't know. I mean, heck, we even argued the night before we got married.
Oof, yeah.
I was trying to.
Isn't that amazing too, when you start to open up and be vulnerable and get to know people that are in similar situations? The number of people that have wedding day or wedding night or day before wedding just horror stories.
Yeah.
It's so common. Kind of like how nobody in active addiction ever goes on vacation. They just take the shit show on the road.
Yeah. Yeah, so I don't know if I had those, if I had the knowledge and the self-esteem and had the ability to maybe set boundaries and make it more known to you, I don't know if you would have comply, I guess isn't the right word, but I don't know if you would have wanted to stay with me, either. So, I mean, maybe it wouldn't have ended, because maybe you would have felt like that was a threat, not just my boundary, but, an ultimatum, and you would have gotten yourself out of the relationship.
I think you are, as always, kind of wise beyond limits. As much as I love you and depend on you and worship you now, I think you're right. Back then, even before addiction, like we say that when I was addicted, that I prioritized alcohol over you. But before that, when the relationship was young and fragile, I think if I was 22 years old and you said you have to choose alcohol or me, we wouldn't know each other. Yeah. Wow, I've never thought about that. That's even more pathetic than all the shit that did happen. Wow.
And I know that you and I have talked about this. What if you had married someone who loved to drink just as much as you did? You know, because
Oh, we'd be dead.
I had terrible hangovers. It was not my favorite thing to do. Um, so you would have just chosen somebody that drank.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay, this has been great. We're going to do one last question, Sheri. I said there were 48 compound questions asked. I think we still have about 96 of them to answer, so we'll have to do this again sometime. But for today, let's end it on this one. It's a whole paragraph, so here we go. Thinking back to when he was drinking and I had no one to confide in, I just wanted someone to tell me what to do. When he had a terrible binge, what do I say to him on the other side of it? Or after a really embarrassing drunk episode in front of our friends and family? When he gives me the silent treatment for days or weeks and then suddenly wants sex, what do I say? Or what do I do? When we are about to go to an event where I know there will be drinking and he is already drinking a lot and I don't want to go with him, but I know if I bring it up, he'll be even more of a jerk. And what do I do when he refuses to give me the keys when he's drinking? All of these situations came up all the time, and I agonized about what to do. Nothing seemed to be helpful, so I ended up always defaulting to just shutting down and staying away from him and doing my own thing. You've been in a lot of those situations.
I have.
Not the silent treatment, though, unfortunately for you.
I know, and
I don't mean to make light of that. Silent treatment
only
is
as a joke. Silent treatment is awful, but it sure would be nice to get a fucking break. Every one of those situations rang true. The pre-gaming before you were going to go out to a party. God, I hated that. Hated the conversations about who was going to be the sober driver, and then you would just say, "No, I'm fine," and then I was have to watch you drive. Thank God we didn't drive too far away and it would be through town, but you never know. I don't think there's anything that you can really say or do in those situations. This is something they have to come to the realization for themselves, and their pain just has to be enough that they want to hear and reach out for help. I think maybe staying away and doing your own thing is the best and the safest thing you can do. Just make sure that you're not in an unsafe situation. I know there was a time, all of a sudden this popped in my head, there was a time when we were 6 blocks away from our house and we drove and to someone else's house, and even they were like, let Sheri drive home, and you were just not having any of it. And I kept thinking, God, I wish the cops would pull him over.
Yeah.
But then I was worried, what would happen? I prayed for a DUI, but then I knew that I would be the one carrying a lot of the weight.
Yeah.
And that would be a financial burden, and it would be from my finances as well, my combined finances. So
this particular question asker, I happen to know who this is. This particular person is in a relationship that is on the mend. There's been long-term sobriety. The relationship's getting better. Lots of positivity. And I think it's perhaps attributed, as I think you were saying, to that last sentence. She says, nothing seemed to be helpful, so I ended up always defaulting to just shutting down and staying away from him and doing my own thing. She detached.
Yeah.
That's detachment. And when you're doing it, it feels insignificant.
Yeah, that's what I was going to say. It feels like you're not doing anything, but really you are.
You're doing the only
something
thing.
By doing nothing to engage with that and kind of enable that behavior.
Yeah.
Going along with knowing that he's going to drive home drunk or they're going to drive home drunk. Not going, because if you went, that would be enabling.
Yeah.
Or the pre-gaming and still going ahead with going out.
Sheri, thanks for sharing your knowledge, your hard-earned knowledge and your experience. I know that State Farm thinks I am elite preferred, but I know that me and our listeners know that you are the one who's elite preferred. We'll have to do this again. We have lots more questions remaining to answer. Did you hear things today that you relate to, listener? Did this conversation resonate for you? If the answer is yes, then I'm sure there is someone in your orbit who could benefit from this conversation too. One of the very best things you can do for your healing is to become part of the solution. Crush the stigma. Participate in the conversation. Maybe you aren't ready to join one of our groups, but that doesn't mean you can't be involved in a meaningful way. All we are asking is this. Please share this episode with one person. Copy the link and send a text or an email. Put it on your social media. Be bold. Claim the sense of belonging you deserve. Just one share. Please. And thank you for listening to the Untoxicated Podcast. You've got this, and we've got you.